Okay. All right, let's go ahead and kick this off. So today, Maureen is joining us to talk about building agility at work and developing your emotional intelligence. And that is really important and integral in everybody's role in what we do, in understanding who we are and how we function in order to better engage and work with our staff, our family members, our peers, and even our customers and clients. So Maureen is going to take a dive into this and let you know a little bit more about how you can embrace who you are, understand your emotional intelligence, and better work with your staff. A little bit about Maureen. Before launching her successful business as a dynamic speaker, educator, and leadership coach, Maureen enjoyed a 27-year career at a Fortune 200 company. After experiencing some major life transformations in her 20s, Maureen learned early on what it takes to advance and grow in a highly matrix business organization. In 2013, she began her entrepreneurial journey, where she launched a venture to train and develop leaders who want to make an impact. Maureen is passionate about helping her clients overcome their fears, develop confidence, and present their ideas solidly and lead others so they can live up to their full potential and move forward in their business life. In 2020, Maureen pivoted her business, providing online training and working with people with solid recovery and help them step into leadership. So from that, I'm going to give it over to you, Maureen, and you can take it from here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am delighted to be here. We are going to talk about building your emotional quotient agility, because honestly, you guys, and you know this, I think all of you know this, it's a really uncertain, volatile, complex, and ambiguous world that we live in. COVID has thrown everybody for a loop. Nothing is really going to go back to normal. And before, we felt confident maybe one way in running our business, but that confidence might be wavering with all the changes and trying to do work from home, managing people who are working from home, or forcing people to come in who are not comfortable in their own skin, being out in this world. So there's a lot of things that we really have to work with if we want to maintain good connections in our business. And we're going to talk about that, the instinctive mindsets of your personality. So I'm going to help you identify your personality and then see if you can figure out what of those 3 out of 8 mindsets you're really naturally inclined for. And also we'll talk about why you need to expand out of your comfort zone and hopefully work on one of those, what do we call it? Work on one of those mindsets. Okay, so that's the goal. I want you to expand out a little bit out of your comfort zone. All right, so a little bit about why is that the statistics say that just last month or a month and a half ago, September 2021, there were 8.6 million unemployed people in this world, in this country, I should say, in this country alone, and nearly 10 million job openings, believe it or not. It's almost as high as it was in, this is the numbers that were up in the 2009, 2010 time period when, the market crashed and everything, but it's back up there pretty high. And a lot of it's due to COVID, but here's what's happening. The facts of the 2020 Gallup poll said 25% of people said, I hate my job. 75%. So that 25% of people say, I love my job. Do they say that? I hope so. But 70% of those people that said, I hate my job, said that my manager is the most stressful part of my job. So a lot of times when we are doing management, we're just managing tasks, and we really need to better understand our people so that we can retain them. Because the result is that people are leaving their jobs at an unprecedented rate. There's all kinds of reasons why, but we don't want it to be because of my manager, right? We don't want it to be because I hate what I'm doing. I will tell you this other interesting statistic too, that a lot of people stay at their jobs, and you might have experienced this in your past. I stayed at my job probably maybe longer than I should have because I love the people or I loved my boss. You know, I work with clients who have people that are reporting to them or in executive positions sometimes, and I try to help them sometimes move over to another company and up and higher in the ranks if they're stuck in their current company. And they have these contracts a lot of times that say, you can't go ahead and poach all these other people that work for you. You know, you can't take people with you, but a good leader will take people with them. Okay, so that's the thing. A good leader creates loyalty and a lot of other things. So that's why it's so important for you to understand and strengthen your emotional intelligence. So if you're a business leader, then it just makes sense. And if you're just a worker, it makes sense, because expanding your emotional intelligence helps you to understand your own personality at work and really own who you are and own your strengths and, you know, your challenges, but also how to learn about your EQ mindsets. So that's what we're going to talk about, that are natural to your specific personality. And then you can engage in stretching outside of what's natural. Right? So we do all these things sometimes, but sometimes we don't do them. So I'm going to talk about what each of them are, those mindsets, and that's what we're going to get into. But first, I want to talk a little bit more about this, what I call the personality influence rule. Okay, so there's 3 parts of leadership. We influence people using what I call the personality influence rule. We influence people with our position, our knowledge, and our personality. But I say that you really want to only influence with your position like 20% or less of the time. And an example of that might be, well, I want you to do this because I'm your mother. That's why I want you to do it. So you don't really want to explain. Sometimes you just need something done and you want to direct somebody to do it. And they'll do it because you are their boss. But most of the time, we want to have a talk with somebody. We want to explain things to them. We want to convince them this is in their best interest, and you appreciate them and you value them for doing that. That's using your personality more so. You see the difference than just using your position or your title. People will do things for you if you have the right title, but that's not how we really want to influence. The second one is knowledge. People will also do things if you are the knowledge expert and you say, we got to change the formula, and people will change the formula because they know you're the expert. So we can influence people with that about 30% of the time. But a lot of times managers, we will get into new positions and we might not know all of the products and services yet. And so you can really still influence with your personality. And we want to do that 50% or more of the time while you're building your knowledge, right? About whatever skill set you might need to become an expert in that company or position. But I know a lot of you have your own businesses. And as a small business, it's important for you to develop relationships with each person that you meet, not just the people that work for you, but also your clients and your colleagues, your competitive or partner businesses out there, right? The vendors that you use, contractors maybe. So there's a lot of reason why you want to build your influence using your personality. And I know that too, if you think about all of the reasons that you really love the best boss you ever had, you're going to think of their personality traits. You're going to say, oh, well, they were friendly and they were kind and they cared about me. They listened to me. They had integrity. They were honest. They gave me choices sometimes when they could. They backed me up. They had my back when I made a mistake, things like that. And so those are all personality traits really that make up really good leaders. When you have people who are loyal to you and then you listen to them, then they're going to pretty much do what you want them to do when it gets rough. right? When the rubber hits the road, when you really need them to just do something, they're going to do it right away. I think you get what I'm talking about. All right, so I want you to think right now, what are your greatest personality traits? How do you influence people? I want you to take a note right now, list 3 of those traits, because that will help you to identify also what is your personality type when I share that with you in just a minute. All right, and so before I get into the personality traits, I'm going to share a little bit about me because, well, I want you to listen to me. I want to build your confidence in me to share with you that I really do know what I'm talking about. So for 3 decades in corporate, I did have that one job for 27 years, but before then, I also had a corporate job. Before that, I worked in manufacturing. Before that, I worked in retail. I also have had a job in a wholesale picture frame supply company. That's manufacturing as well. I worked at Colts for a while. I mean, I've had a lot of different jobs. And even in my company that I worked for 27 years, I had 15 different jobs. So I was constantly learning and growing. And about every other year, I would get a new job because it was exciting for me, because that's what I really wanted to learn and grow. And I was super into professional and personal development. So I took every class I possibly could. I read all kinds of books because I did have I had a major transformation in my 20s. I'm not going to go into that story, but suffice it to say, I was a drug addict and an alcoholic between the ages of 13 and 24. I got clean and sober when I was 24. I'm coming up on 37 years now, you guys. And all of that time, I completely transformed my life. I changed everything about myself, and that's when I stepped into a higher level of performance in my corporate job. And I really had a fantastic career. I created a great life for myself. When I left there in 2013, I founded Emerge Leadership Academy in 2015. And for the first couple of years, I said, I need a break. I need a break from corporate. And I became a personal, a personal growth coach, right? A life coach, that's what we call them. And then I got into training again because I realized I'm just leaving too much on the table. And I do believe that the world needs better leaders because of that statistic I shared with you earlier, that whole idea that people hate their jobs sometimes, and sometimes it's because of their boss. And that's the biggest reason why people leave their jobs. And I don't want that to be you. All right. So we're going to figure out what is your personality type and how to best use your personality to better your relationships at work. I became a personality expert in Myers-Briggs in my 20s and 30s. And then in my 40s, I studied the Enneagram. And in my 50s, and now in my next decade, I am an expert in everything DISC. So I'm an authorized partner in everything DISC. This is a Wiley brand. That particular company, Wiley, they have been in publishing for over 100 years, and they have an education arm as well. And they work with training companies like mine. And so a lot of what I have is just really top-notch scientifically backed processes and reports that you get when you take any of the assessments there. So in my 40s, I went back to school. I got my master's in education with a focus on training and performance improvement. So I got into this training company, like I said, Emerge Leadership Academy. And during COVID, though, of course, all of my classes were canceled. So I did a little bit of a pivot, and I started to work with people who are in recovery, because people who are in recovery, they really do have when you work on yourself, you work on all the things that make you a really good leader. So I want to help people, but I created it for them, but honestly, a lot of other people who need it anyways. They want to reinvent themselves. They have been taking my Recovery at Work course. That's an 8-week online. You can look at any of this stuff on my website, Emerge Leadership Academy. And I also created a podcast, Emerge, Evolve, Lead podcast for people in recovery. But I still offer Personality at Work classes. And 2021, now that I'm vaccinated, I'm able to go get back into training, and that's been really fun. I'll tell you a little bit more about that a little later. I do offer DISC assessments, and there is a free quiz on my website. It's called What Animal Best Represents Your Leadership Style? Take the quiz. So you can go there and find out well, if you answer the questions as honestly as you can, you'll get a really close, easy look at what your potential personality type is. All right. And this is why I do it, you guys, because I love to have fun. My husband and I ride motorcycle across the country whenever we can. And these are my grandbabies. I got 4 of them. They are all under 7 and under now. And then this is my very solid group of friends that have been friends with me forever, supporting me all along the way, because that's what it takes, right? Having a community when things go bad. So that's why I do all this, and it makes my life so much fun. Now, if you were in a class and we had more time, I would play this video for you to give you an introduction to everything DISC. But you can always go there, and but today I'm just going to explain it to you in like 2 minutes. It's going to be a quick one, but I want you to, take a picture of the screen if you want, and you can go there and learn more about how you can identify your personality style. All right. So now what I'm going to do is jump into sharing a little bit more about this DISC map. What this is called the DISC map, and what is the overview of the DISC model. I want you to remember that these are just your preferences. It doesn't meant to be a label for you. It's not meant to pigeonhole you or even provide excuses. It's really supposed to be flexible, simply to show what your preferences are and where they lie. And by doing this, by identifying your personality type, then you'll be able to really see what your natural emotional, your EQ stuff is, your natural mindsets are, and where you might need to work. Okay, so this is the first step, helping you to understand your personality type. So I'm going to share just a little bit about them, and I want you to see if you can identify where you fall most of the time. Okay, so the D is the green, and that stands for dominance. The dominance personality type are very action-oriented. They're fast-paced, direct, they're firm, they make quick decisions. They're also strong-willed because they go after what they want. They are super results-oriented, sometimes can seem a little forceful, but they will get over the obstacles. They're good problem solvers. And again, their fallback is just get it done. Keep plowing forward. I'm gonna help, make this happen. They're kind of like that, all right? So that's, again, a generalization of the D, not mindset, but the D personality type. The I, going over to the right here, the I personality type is the influencer or influence. That's what the I stands for. And these folks are also action oriented, and they like getting results as well, but they're much more people focused. They're very outgoing, friendly, enthusiastic, highly spirited, super optimistic, see the good in people and will help you. And they also want to be liked a lot too. And they're very lively. And this is a very creative, a lot of creatives here in the I quadrant. Okay. So that might be you. And then going down to the lower right quadrant is the S. The S personality type is also a people-oriented, people-focused person. That stands for steadiness. And they are warm and friendly and very even-tempered, mild-mannered. They're accommodating people. They're patient. They're good listeners. They are humble and tactful, right? Because they also really like harmony, and they want to make sure everything is running smoothly. Okay, they do not like confrontation. They do not like chaos, right? So that's more about the steadiness. Is that one you? Now we move over to the last one. The C stands for conscientiousness. The conscientiousness personality type is kind of like your expert, analytical. They can be reserved for sure, but they are super quality focused. They want to get things right. They are very good with systems and processes, like your project manager types and your engineers of the world, okay? They like precision. They want it on time, in the right order. Don't mess anything up because that screws with quality. You see what I'm saying? So they are really, again, quality focused. So that one might be you. Now, you might also fall in between the two systems. You might not be able to tell, well, am I an I or an S? I don't really know. Or maybe you fall somewhere between the C and the S, or the D and the C. So it doesn't really matter. You could be on the line or have a secondary type that's very close to yours. And you know, it also depends like where your dot falls on the map. The only way to get the map is to actually be, take the full assessment. It's about a 20-minute online assessment. And I'll tell you how you can get your assessment in a little while if you're interested in that. So I would like to see if you wouldn't mind typing in the chat right now, where do you think you fall? Are you a D? Just type the letter D, I, S, or C. Or if you think you're not sure between S and C or something like that, go ahead and put 2 letters in the chat. I would love to see what it is. Who do you think? Where might you fall? Somewhere between D and C. Okay. CS, DI. Good, good. So I think that's pretty explanatory. It sounds like you guys do know yourselves. And, again, we are all of these things. And you could be, Courtney, you could be right in the center, but nobody actually falls right in the center. But you usually have a preference, right? You usually have a preference. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about I'm going to ask you another question, and then we'll go into understanding the emotional mindsets. Actually, we won't. It's already 25 after. I'm going to go right into it because time is going so fast. But I don't know if you can tell, but I'm an I. I'm a strong I, like way out here. If you fall in the middle of the circle, then you might have a preference. And then if you're closer to the center, it's a slight preference. So that's all that means when you do get a map with your dot on it. But in the big scheme of things, just to tell you, I'm really on the outside here. I am very outgoing, enthusiastic. I'm optimistic, high-spirited. I love to talk. I love to educate people, and I am warm and friendly and approachable. So that might tell you something about even your boss. If you're thinking about your boss, or if you are the boss, are you like that? You might be closer to there. If not, if you're the opposite of that, nope. Emotions don't need to be at work. I am on task. I am focused. You might be more down in the C category. Okay. So that's where some of that falls. Now we're going to go through and understand the emotional mindsets that are associated with where you think you might be. All right. So when you're understanding the emotional mindsets, I want you to think about what are your strengths, and based on the fact of where you think your dot might fall, where your personality is, those are definitely going to be more natural for you, those emotional mindsets. And then I want you to think about which one might you need to work on. But first things first, let's go ahead through them. What I'm going to share with you are just a brief overview of each of the mindsets and when they're at their best and when they're at their worst, okay? So it's not a ton of information, but I want you to write down your questions and I'll take them in just a few minutes. Okay, so here we have the list: resolute, self-assured, dynamic, outgoing, empathizing, receptive, composed, and objective. And you'll see where they fall around the outside of the circle. So your D, C types are going to be resolute, self-assured, and objective. Those are their natural. If you're somewhere between here, that's going to be your natural 3 mindsets. Okay. And then the other 5 are things that you might need to work on. Okay. So this is the way we're going to go through these, and you can just sort of identify which 3 are you closest to. All right. So the first one is resolute. The it says standing your ground in face of opposition, speaking up about problems, and pushing through any resistance. So when this is used at its best, this is you when you say you have an idea that you really believe in, but others may not be listening, well, because of stress, or maybe there's other priorities in the business, or fear that they don't have the time, or maybe they just don't take you seriously. Because if you're an I and you're always having fun at work, and then suddenly, you have this idea, they don't even want to listen to it. That could happen. But you need to stand. Being resolute in those circumstances means that you need to find the courage to speak up, to push through resistance, and not give in just because it's hard, or because maybe it's not a popular idea, or you won't be liked. You see what I mean? So that's at best. Standing resolute is having an idea you believe in and standing up for it, even against opposition. But at worst, if you use it all the time, if this is a natural thing for you, but you're always being resolute, then that means that people will think that you think your idea is always the best. And it can come across as being stubborn and closed-minded if you're always using resolute. You see what I'm saying? Even if you're the boss, and even if it's your business, it's going to be good for you to maybe go to the opposite extreme sometimes and be receptive and empathizing. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But you see where I'm going with this? So this is a mindset that at best, it's standing up for your ideas and yourself in the face of opposition. At worst, if you're always relying on it, you can seem like, again, stubborn. Next one, self-assured. Asserting your opinions and rights, projecting confidence in your ideas and abilities, and taking charge of situations. So that's self-assured, right? At best, you are showing up, you're stating with confidence what you know, when you know, and you can add value with your idea or your skill. And stepping up and helping others without being asked, and yet being calm and self-assured. Everybody loves a leader like that, especially in times of chaos or crisis, right? You can be self-assured and calm and know that's at best. But at worst, it could come across as cocky or overconfident if you're always asserting your opinion, even when others are already doing okay without your help. You see what I mean? And stepping back and letting others sometimes take the wheel, or, take charge of something, and they're perfectly able to do that, then it looks self-assured, even if you're just following along confidently, because you don't always have to be in the leadership role. You see how you can use it that way too. So not letting your ego get bruised because maybe you're not the leader for something or other. All right. And sometimes, but if you can be a good role model there, that's fantastic. The next one is dynamic. So dynamic is initiating action on your ideas and influencing people and projecting a strong social presence. So some people, like sometimes the C's and the S's, they'll be like, what? No, I don't need the spotlight on me. But dynamic is at best coming up with creative ideas and expressing your thoughts to others to get their input, right? And then moving forward and taking action on those ideas, involving others, rallying the troops to follow along, and then you help in a charismatic way. That's dynamic. That's using and reading the room and helping other people to get behind an idea. But at worst, if you're over pushing your ideas all the time and not listening to others, but pushing people into helping, and if you're just directing, then sometimes this can look, that it can make dynamic look like bullying. Okay, so you want to influence with affability and affection and inclusion, but not just directing and telling all the time because you think you have great ideas. And sometimes you need to voice your ideas and your opinions. If this is not a strong or natural suit for you, you need to be sometimes stepping into the dynamic mindset. Does that make sense? Okay, the next one is outgoing. Outgoing is the one in the I category. Outgoing, establishing and maintaining relationships and expressing your emotions and unfiltered thoughts to others. Some people say, unfiltered thoughts, no, but that's a strong suit for me. And sometimes sharing who I really am and what I really think is in my best interest, and it really works for me. But if I'm always using, so at best, I'm interested in other people, I'm checking in on folks in my network, I'm talking about how I'm feeling and how you're feeling about things, and I'm extending trust to others by sharing those thoughts and ideas. But at worst, if I'm always using it, then I'm a little too outgoing and sharing without filters all the time. And that can get really tiring. If I'm not reading the room right, I can be over communicating when people really need quiet, right? Or they need someone to listen, and I'm just blabbering away all the time, being outgoing. Sometimes you need to rein it in, right? And that's an emotional mindset there. The next one is empathizing. Now, empathizing is reaching out with compassion, seeking to understand people's emotional needs and struggles, and being supportive. This is a big one, right, in the workplace right now because of so much change and stress that we've been going through with the pandemic. But at best, when you use empathizing, you are noticing when someone is hurting, you're taking them aside, you're taking time to listen, and you're finding out what's going on so that you can be supportive. You don't necessarily need to fix them or come up with solutions, but just holding space for them to feel, for them to feel what they're feeling while you bear witness, that goes a super long way to building trust and then holding those confidences as well. But at worst, it can sometimes feel like if you're always doing this empathizing thing, it can feel like you're prying or that you're looking for drama or that you need to be needed. And sometimes it comes across like it's about you trying to comfort people instead. It can feel a little smothering. Or you can be like getting on the pity party with people, and that's kind of like colluding. You know what I mean? So if you want to talk about that more, we certainly can. Now, the next one is receptive. Receptive is staying open to other people's ideas and being willing to compromise or set aside your own needs and preferences, even if it's not, and you have to sort of decide what's best for the group instead of what's just best for you. So at best, when you're being open and receptive with a partner or a team, you'll always get better results, right? If you have, because you're going to get more information to make a better decision. And then you can weigh what you've heard and decide, your own needs and preferences. And this will help you build relationships and get you more cooperation. So even if you don't follow the advice sometimes of others, just by listening and hearing them out, they will follow along with what you decide because they felt heard. You see what I'm saying? But at worst, if you're always receptive or too receptive in every situation, and you're always trying to please all the people all the time, and then your needs never get met. And you can't please all the people all the time. You just can't. Sometimes you need to be resolute and go for, another mindset. Okay, then we get to composed. Composed is reflecting before acting, moderating your responses, even under stress, and exercising diplomacy. So when you're using this, at best, you're thinking before blurting out what you think or what you feel. You take a step back and you're listening. You're taking time to reflect before you act, especially when you're being bullied or pushed into action, and being professional and tactful in your responses. Instead of allowing yourself to be triggered. So if you need time before responding, then you can ask for it. I need to think about things. Can we talk about this a little bit later? And so that's how you could really use it in an emotional crisis or situation. At worst, though, if you overuse it, if you are always composed, you guys, then no one will ever really know how you feel, or it feels like you just have a mask on all the time. And when you're always composed, some people may perceive you as cold and aloof, like you don't have any feelings. And we know that's not true about you. So it might be a natural mindset for you. And in some situations it's good, but overused, it's not so much. Okay. Now the last one is objective. So objective is separating facts from emotions and keeping the discussion focused on logic. At best, you're separating facts from emotions and you're helping to diffuse emotional topics, and you keep the discussion focused on logic. So people who are highly creative, they can be overly emotional about not having their ideas shut down, right? But or about having their ideas shut down. But someone who is objective can always help them see it's not personal. It's just because of this and this and this. And so that can be a super great tool. But at worst, if you're always too objective, being too objective can shut down creativity. And we all know that the mind is limited on the left side of your brain. It's objective and logical and reasonable, but the imagination on that right side of the brain can spark an incredible amount of creativity where business can overcome the impossible. That's how we grow and expand, okay? So those are the 8 different mindsets. You might be able to see, based on what you chose earlier, if you're a DIS or C, where your strengths are, which 3 are your strengths, or it might be the dynamic, the resolute, and the objective. And then in that case, you have 5 other ones that may be not your natural mindsets, one that you might need to work on. All right, so that's what I would encourage you to do. I don't have time today, but you can see here that there are examples of how you can work on expanding your mindsets. And these are just beginning exercises. If you're already good at all of them, there are intermediate exercises and there are advanced exercises for getting better and better and better at when you might want to step into each of these things, each of these mindsets at work, okay? So I wanted to also offer to you, before we close, get into questions, is let you know that I do have a workshop coming up. It's going to be on December 3rd. It's called Know Your Value and Communicate for Results. And it's all about taking the DISC assessment and learning about your personality style, really understanding how to create amazing relationships and find out why others bug you. All right, so this is how you register. I don't know, Matt, if you wouldn't mind typing in this email. Oh, there's no dot in front of Emerge. Is there a dot there? Yeah, get rid of that dot. It's just emergeleadershipacademy.com/register. That's how you can find out more details on that. All of what I offer is on Emerge Leadership Academy. You can also get for $149, meet with me. The free quiz is there and the personality at work. There's some testimonials here. I'm happy to share those with you. And I also want you to know that I do classes. If you would like for me to come in and do a class for your organization, I will share with you that for $1,200, 8 participants, it's a 4-hour event, either online or virtual. And it's so good. I will share again that this class gave our group an excellent framework to think through how we operate. And they got a lot of insights from them. So I really, really do love teaching these classes. And I'm going to leave you with this. A man wanted to become a master in martial arts, and he was working at it 6 days a week, but he could only go so far. So one day he decided to go to Japan and study with the masters because he knew then he could really become a master. He wanted to perfect his craft. So he went there and he lived with his teacher there along with some other students. He studied and he worked really hard. And then one day he was on the bus, and a very large man who was quite inebriated got on the bus, and he was being loud and abusive to some people. He was bumping into people and pushing people out of the way. And the guy in the back, he was always taught that you never use your skills unless absolutely necessary, like only in self-defense or if you needed to stick up for the weak, or somebody who couldn't protect themselves. And so he's sitting in the back of the bus and he said to himself, this might be the day where I really get to use my martial arts. So he was just about to get up and go handle the situation when the drunk man fell into a seat next to an old man who put his arm around that drunk man and said, so you've been drinking a lot of sake today, huh? And the drunk man kind of pushed him away and said gruffly, yeah, what do you know, what of it? He said to him, and then the man said, I used to drink sake every night with my wife in our garden. And then she died. And now I'm very sad and I don't have anyone to drink with. And the big guy just burst out crying. And he said to the old man, my wife just died. And he just sobbed into the old man's arms. And the guy in the back of the bus, he realized then who the true warrior was. And it wasn't somebody who could take him out physically. It was the master who could take him out emotionally. There's a lot to be said for understanding your emotions and understanding those of others and helping people to be more emotionally intelligent at work. So I'm opening up for Q&A, but I do know we're right up at the end of the thing. So I do want to open it up. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat or the Q&A box. Matt, you could ask them. But in the meantime, if you want to meet with me to discuss this presentation or for business, for your own, whatever, I'm here. And you can always book a session with me. I want to make sure I offer that before you leave. Any questions for me?
Not right now.
Okay. Thank you for typing those into the chat box.
Sure.
Well, I hope to see you. I hope that you guys get out there and take the quiz, even the free one on my website, and learn more about yourselves, because it really will help you in your business and in your life, in all your relationships, when you do that work on yourself. And I know if you're in this session that you're one of those people that does it. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Maureen, for imparting this wisdom with us today. And we really appreciate you coming out and hosting this session. And definitely, reach out to Maureen. She's very approachable, as she's always here. If you have any questions, and you can always send them to BBB as well, and we'll patch you through. Thank you for joining us today, Maureen. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this presentation. We do have another presentation, as Maureen said, coming up very shortly at 2 o'clock about design thinking in your business. So if you haven't had a chance to register and you would like to be a part of that session, please pop over to betterbusinesssummit.com, where you can register for that or any of tomorrow's sessions as well. Thank you so much for coming, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, Jackie. Bye-bye.
Bye.